Good Thursday morning. It is April 2nd. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller, and you found us here on the weather desk. Each and every weekday morning around 9 o'clock, we give you a half an hour on today's top weather headlines and another busy show today. A lot going on here on Earth and some pretty exciting things up in space as well. Let's take a look at our topics today, some of the things we'll be talking about. We have an update for you on the Artemis II mission. So excited about that liftoff last night. It was awesome to watch, and we're going to let you know where they are now, where they're headed, and some more details on that. We're also going to show you kind of a standby crew with the local tie to Hampton Roads. So if you are watching from Southeast Virginia or Northeast North Carolina, kind of have a local tie here to the Artemis II mission. As we take a look, we're going to also get into, of course, the Easter weekend forecast. Have you ever wondered why Easter falls on different dates? Year after year, it always changes a little bit. We'll explain why that is. As we take a look, we're also going to get into the fact that we've got finally some snow for parts of the western U.S. and a late season snow has some skiers pretty excited. You know, it's been a tough winter for a lot of the resorts out west. They've been dealing with snow droughts in some areas. We'll take you out there and show you some pretty happy snowboarders and skiers with this late season snow. Then we're going to take you over to the Mediterranean, and you know, we talk about some interesting things that we see around the globe. In this case, we have an orange sky over Crete. We'll explain, we'll show you those pictures, those images from Crete, but we're also going to explain why that was going on there. And then we're going to talk about weather history. And if you've been watching the weather desk, if you found us here before, you know, sometimes we take a look back. One of my colleagues, Evan Stewart, is taking a look at weather history, things that have helped shape our nation and our history as we celebrate 250 years, the United States this year. Well, today, this is a really tough situation. The tri-state tornado was back in the 1920s. Evan is going to take us back there and talk about this really, really deadly tornado. So more on that as we look at our weather history. And then the possibility of more tornadoes across parts of the Midwest. There's a good chance we could see an outbreak later today, and we're going to get into all of that. So a lot to go over. But you know what? First things first, we have liftoff. Last night, NASA launched Artemis II, which is the first human moon mission in more than 50 years. NASA still has a live feed right now showing the control room. And if we take down that banner, you can take a look on the screen right now. Oh, we've got the bug there. There we go. All right. So currently it is moving along at just over 2,000 miles per hour. So it is racing along. Earlier it was up around 3,000. So think about that, how quickly it's moving along. You see the distance from Earth. Right now it's located about 43,574 miles from Earth. And it is orbiting Earth right now before it heads out to the moon. You see the distance from the moon right now, about 224, well, almost 224, 520 there for the miles to the moon. So it's out there. It's still kind of orbiting Earth before it slingshots out towards the moon. So we're going to continue to watch those. Now, you can see with this live feed we've been looking in on the control room, this is actually a visualization or a simulation of where Artemis is. ABC's Sophie Flay has a look at how the crew is doing so far.
3, 2, 1, booster ignition. And liftoff.
The Artemis II mission now underway, with astronauts set to travel deeper into space than ever before.
So after a brief 54-year intermission, NASA is back in the business of sending astronauts to the moon.
The Orion spacecraft lifting off, powered by a 322-foot-tall, 6-million-pound rocket. NASA resolved a brief communications issue shortly after liftoff and says the 4-person crew is safe, secure, and in great spirits. They're currently in orbit, 46,000 miles from Earth, where they will stay for about a day, testing Orion's systems. If everything checks out, they'll begin their journey to the moon. The crew will then conduct a lunar flyby before slingshotting back with an eventual ocean splashdown here at home. It's the first time Americans have traveled to the moon since 1972. Crowds gathered near Kennedy Space Center to witness history.
Here we are, going back.
Going back, yeah.
after all these years.
It's just such an experience to be able to see one of those go off and just to feel that power.
Watch parties were held across the country, this one in Pennsylvania.
So we are going to celebrate a new milestone for everybody, not only for USA, for the whole planet, for the whole humanity.
Even astronauts on the International Space Station tuned in.
Godspeed, Artemis II!
Before launch, in a nod to tradition and a bit of superstition, the astronauts played cards until everyone lost a hand, leaving the bad luck behind. And just like the Apollo astronauts some 50 years ago, they walked out through those same famous doors.
Thank you all for being out here. It's a great day for us.
The crew will spend 10 days in space, where doctors say their bodies will face several challenges.
Our bodies undergo a lot of adaptation as soon as we're exposed to microgravity or weightlessness. So our astronauts are almost seasick for the first couple of days of spaceflight. They're nauseous, they don't want to eat.
Artemis II won't land on the moon, but the goal of the mission is to pave the way for future landings and the eventual exploration of Mars. Sophie Flay, ABC News, New York.
All right, while only 4 astronauts are on board Artemis II right now, NASA also selected 2 backup crew members, and one of them has ties to Hampton Roads. Take a look. Andre Douglas graduated from Western Branch High School in Chesapeake. He's on the far left. Douglas went on to get his bachelor's in mechanical engineering from the U.S. Coast Guard Academy and his master's from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. In 2022, Douglas began 2 years of training as a NASA astronaut candidate before he was selected as a backup for the Artemis mission. Love to see Hampton Roads represented. Artemis II wasn't the only reason to keep your eye to the sky last night. We had the first full moon of spring. It's also known as the pink moon. Now, it peaked just after 10 o'clock, and despite its name, the moon doesn't actually appear pink. It's just named after the early spring bloom of a wildflower called moss pink. Even though the full moon peaked last night, the moon should still appear full today and tomorrow. And I was noticing, again, we have in the graphic here a little pinkish tint. It is not. It is the regular color, but again, named because of the creeping phlox or moss pink. It comes into bloom, and this is an occurrence here that's traditionally around the time of the full moon in April. Next moon coming up in May will be the flower moon, just in case you're wondering. All right, as we take a look, the full moon, you think about that, it kind of plays in to the reason why Easter Sunday always falls on different dates. This year, this Easter Sunday, coming up on April 5th. So it's coming up in a few days. You can see the forecast. I'm going to spend a lot more time preparing folks for Easter Sunday with our full weather forecast breaking down for the Southeast Virginia and Northeast North Carolina coming up. But you might wonder why Easter Sunday always falls on a different date every year. Meteorologist Taylor Stephenson explains.
Have you ever noticed that Easter seems to hop around the calendar every year? One year it's in late March, the next it's in April. That's because Easter isn't set to a fixed calendar date like Christmas. Instead, it's tied to both the sun and the moon. In March, in the Northern Hemisphere, we have our spring equinox, when the day is equal parts daylight and nighttime. Easter Sunday is observed on the Sunday following the first full moon on or after the spring equinox. This year, the full moon occurs on Wednesday, April 1st. That makes Sunday, April 5th, the first Sunday after the first spring full moon, which is why Easter is this weekend. We call this full moon the Paschal moon due to its relation to Easter and Passover. Because the timing of the full moons changes from year to year, the date of Easter changes too. Wednesday's full moon is also known as the pink moon because during this time of year in North America, a native wildflower called the moss phlox blooms. For 13 News Now, I'm meteorologist Taylor Stephenson.
All right, Taylor, thanks for the information. We're going to take a very short break, and when we come back in just 2 minutes, we're going to look back at the deadliest tornado in American history, the tri-state tornado. Plus, we're going to take a look at some snow on the West Coast, that orange sky over Crete, and we're going to talk about the severe weather chances across the country today. That's all coming up along with the Easter forecast. Stay tuned after this short break. Welcome back to the Weather Desk. Right now, the southeast U.S. still very warm. That's the case here in Hampton Roads. And as we take a look, we're getting into this warmer time of year, but there are still parts of the West Coast that are seeing some snow, and they're excited about it. Connor McGill, he's going to show us how skiers are enjoying what may be their last fresh snow of the season.
As snow falls in the Sierra, skiers and snowboarders at Boreal are making the most of a late season surprise after weeks of summer-like weather. For some, this storm came out of nowhere. Elena Foss going from a sunny beach to a snowy mountain.
I wasn't expecting this. I was just in Puerto Rico, literally 2 days ago. And so I'm I want to go snowboarding, and then it's blizzarding.
And others say just days ago they were ready to call it a season. Nicholas Chow came down from San Francisco on his spring break, surprised by all the snow on the mountain.
I thought last week was my last day this season, and then it's just been really warm, and so there hasn't been really much snow.
It's been very dry, very sad to say the least.
That unseasonable warmth in March did more than cut the season short. It significantly reduced the snowpack. Wednesday morning, officials with the Department of Water Resources conducted their critical April snowpack survey, and the results were not encouraging.
Normally, we'd be standing right here if we had an average year.
It's the second lowest April reading on record, and for the first time in 11 years, there was no measurable snow at Phillips Station. Statewide, the snowpack sits at just 18% of average for this time of year, after much of it melted early during that warm March. Statewide, the snowpack sits at just 18% of average for this time of year, after much of it melted away in March. Many are now looking ahead, hoping next season will bring a turnaround.
Hopefully next year's real good and there's a lot of powder and whatnot.
Hopefully next year, longer season, more snow.
Yeah, hopefully they will get that snow. They really need it again to provide that water during the warmer months. So we'll see that snowpack so critical out there to the west. We're going to take you overseas now, and we're going to really focus on the Mediterranean. You see Greece here, but we're going to take you just south there to Crete. And this is where a dust storm has engulfed this island here in a red and orange haze. So check this out. This is, again, not a filter on the camera. This is how the skies look. They turn red and orange over Crete. This was on Wednesday after a strong storm blew dust from Africa over the island. The winds gusting reached up to about 60 miles per hour. And again, that dust kind of refracting and man, creates just a really eerie sky. You remember, I think it was last week, we had that red sky down to the south over Shark Bay in Australia, and it was a situation where a tropical system stirred up a bunch of iron in the sand there and kind of brought that up, that dust. So a couple of interesting things to check out there with the skies. All right, so back here in the United States, we've been focusing on our history and big weather events. Well, back in the United States, back in 1925, the tri-state tornado tore through parts of Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana, becoming the deadliest tornado in U.S. history. Meteorologist Evan Stewart takes us back to a time before radars and warnings when we couldn't see these storms coming.
Imagine a tornado so fast and so powerful that entire towns had no time to react. On March 18, 1925, the deadliest tornado in U.S. history tore across 3 states, Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. The tri-state tornado stayed on the ground for more than 200 miles, moving at speeds up to 60 miles per hour. Communities were devastated in just minutes. But what made this storm especially dangerous was the fact that there were no warnings. At the time, there were no weather radars, no modern forecasting, and forecasters were even discouraged from using the word tornado in official forecasts for fear it would cause a panic. Nearly 700 people were killed, making it the deadliest tornado in American history. And it wasn't just the power of the storm, it was how unprepared people were. The tri-state tornado exposed a gap in weather science. In the years that followed, that gap would begin to close, and just 23 years later, for the first time, a tornado was successfully predicted. More on that next week.
All right, Evan, I've been loving these kind of U.S. history, weather history features he's been doing. I will tell you, I've been here in Hampton Roads serving Southeast Virginia and Northeast North Carolina for most of the last almost 30 years. I came here in '97, but I did spend 3 years back in St. Louis serving as the chief meteorologist at KSDK. While there, I covered a tornado that touched down near Perryville, Missouri, down in Perry County. It moved across southern Illinois and just into the edge of Indiana. That was a long track, obviously a very long track tornado and a complex system there that produced some damage. That tornado, though, did not hit as many areas, and we had a lot of warnings and a lot of preparation. The difference there between that and the deadly tri-state tornado, huge when you consider, how far we've come with the technologies and the abilities to predict and track these things. So now when we have tornado outbreaks, we're much better prepared to alert folks and let them know things are coming. As we take a look right now in the central part of the Show Me State, you can see just west of Columbia, there is a flood warning. That flash flood warning includes, it's for Cooper County, but you can see about 10,500 people or so there, and that's going to run until 10:45 Eastern, 9:45 local. This area here under flood advisory to the north, this is a flood advisory, but a much larger population in that area, 73, almost 74,000 people there. Cooper, Lynn, Randolph, and Saline counties. That does include Boonville. Right along the Missouri River, they've got some beautiful locations. They've got a winery, and it's one of those areas that, again, they deal with water coming up from time to time, but they've got to take the flood advisories always seriously, and that's what's going on until, again, 9 a.m. Central, 10 o'clock southeastern. So we'll continue to watch those areas. Aside from that, we're just looking at rain. It's more widespread across portions of, well, you can see Rhode Island, much of Connecticut, and Massachusetts dealing with that. Some mixing up across southern New Hampshire into Vermont. As we take a look across the northern parts of the lower peninsula of Michigan, here you do have snow up towards Sault Ste. Marie. The UP of Michigan also dealing with some snow. That extends back over through International Falls. You can see some of the areas back out towards Fargo, some snow this morning, and then more rain back off to the south of that, Sioux City through Omaha. We're going to be watching all of this as this works eastward. Des Moines getting a little bit of a break right now, just a few sprinkles, but more rain headed that way. And we're going to talk about the severe weather outlook here in a moment. Snow scattered across parts of Nevada into Idaho. You can see western parts of Montana, portions of Washington and Oregon also seeing some light to moderate precipitation. Again, these areas have really needed more of that moisture. And then down into Texas, some heavy downpours around Austin and south of Waco. Right now, Dallas is catching a little bit of a break, but there's a line of storms here kind of pushing through the northeast part of the Lone Star State. So what about the outlook for severe weather? Well, you can see as I stop the animated loop here and put the winds on, we've got low pressure centered right here, and this is moving along. We've got a frontal boundary. It's to the north. We'll get more into our local forecast for Hampton Roads in a moment. But with this thing forecast to track to the east and turn more to the northeast here as it goes across the Great Lakes, that's going to bring this area into a situation that is primed for some stronger storm development later today. And when we take a look at the severe weather outlook, they go to this third level, what we call an enhanced threat of severe storms for this area shaded in orange. Numerous severe storms are expected. The slight risk, we have scattered severe storms, and then in this marginal risk, a few isolated severe storms will be possible. Now, the thing that really has me most concerned is the potential for some stronger tornadoes. And you can see this area shaded in red. That's kind of that third tier of threat for tornadoes. And the fact that these are hashed out again, we're looking at EF2, potential stronger, maybe some longer track tornadoes potentially across the area. So we're going to need to watch this from southern parts of Wisconsin through eastern Iowa and northern Illinois. Chicago and Chicagoland, the whole metro area there under that level 2 kind of elevated threat. Down through St. Louis, there's that concern as well, and that extends all the way down into the southeast part of Missouri. Again, this was where that tri-state tornado occurred so long ago, back in 1925, but you can see this is an area that deals with the potential for tornadoes. All right, so you look at the areas in red, Davenport, you can see back over to Concord, over to DeKalb, these areas all the way up through Rockford, Illinois, and then into southern portions of Wisconsin as well. Dubuque, Cedar Rapids, some of these other communities, all the way up through Madison, Wisconsin, all under this level 3 threat for tornadoes. So we're going to have to watch for that. Level 2 up through Oshkosh and Milwaukee under that as well. Detroit under a level 1 threat, elevated threat for tornadoes, and that extends down through Memphis, Cincinnati, kind of on the cusp of that. In addition, very gusty winds, a big concern as well, as you might imagine. Northern Illinois, watch out for some damaging wind gusts, and there could be some large hail for eastern Missouri, western Illinois, and eastern Iowa up into southern parts of Wisconsin. I know there's a lot going on, but my concern is with the severe weather outbreak. We'll be talking more about potential damages from these storms tomorrow on the weather desk. We'll see. One of the things we also like to do on Thursday is update you on the drought monitor. This drops every Thursday morning at 8:30 Eastern, and this is the very latest. You can see they are still dealing with extreme to exceptional drought in the Northwest. Well, that zipped around very quickly. We're going to do this one more time because I do want to talk about some more of these areas in a little more detail. So let's go ahead and come back to the map, and let's take this full for a second because I'm going to move it by hand. I really do want to focus in on a few areas here. And as we do, you can see, again, those parts of the country. First of all, we'll stop it in the northwest part of Colorado. Places like Vail, we talk about some of the ski resorts that didn't get a lot of snow. They've been in a bit of a snow drought. You can see the extreme drought situation across much of Utah, from the Red Rock area. You talk about Moab and some of the beautiful areas in Utah. It's just breathtaking country out there. Into the West Deserts, they've got these very, very dry conditions. For Wyoming, Casper, back down through Cheyenne, these areas under the extreme drought as well. But that severe or exceptional drought, rather, for northwest Colorado, a huge issue. Looking across Oklahoma and Arkansas, a lot of drought there, some extreme to exceptional drought. Southern portions of Texas really needing the rain. Looks like Houston and around Galveston a little bit better right there, but areas out to the west of Corpus Christi and off to the northwest of Brownsville definitely needing more rain. And you could say, again, exceptional drought there visible across southern Georgia, North Florida, right along the Georgia-Florida border there, the state line. They've got exceptional drought here in Hampton Roads. Things not looking terrible for the peninsula or areas out to the west of the peninsula once you get into, say, Surrey and even parts of Isle of Wight doing okay. As you come south side, we still have dry conditions, but it's not terribly bad for Norfolk and Portsmouth. Now, most of Chesapeake and Virginia Beach under moderate drought. That extends out through southern Suffolk, out through the Franklin area, and then northeast North Carolina. South of the Albemarle Sound now, you can see severe drought, and we've got extreme drought out towards Rocky Mount and basically areas from the southern parts of Northampton all the way out through I-95. Also, I'll just mention very quickly, moderate drought for Accomack, back through the northern neck and parts of the middle peninsula. So we could use some rain. We're not going to see nothing significant for the next few days, but there will be a chance for rain coming up on Easter Sunday. All right, let's talk about the allergy situation and our report. Tree pollen still extreme. Grass pollen is moderate. Over the next 9 hours, a decent amount of sunshine and a few fair weather clouds. Temperatures back up into the low 80s. We did get to a record high yesterday officially in Norfolk. We had a high of 86 degrees, so that beat the old record of 83. You can see the winds still a little gusty. We've seen gusts in the upper teens to mid-20s around Virginia Beach and Portsmouth, so that 20 to 25 mile per hour wind gust, a possibility Portsmouth, Norfolk, over to Virginia Beach. Temperatures are going to continue to rise. Right now, upper 60s to near 70. Out on the water, gusts to about 20 knots on the bay and on the ocean. All right, let's get into the future cast and take a closer look. Across the area, a lot of sunshine, a little bit of cloud cover down to the south. And as we go along, you're going to find the temperatures warming up through the low 70s and into the low 80s this afternoon. Looking pretty good for us overnight. Notice this little backdoor front trying to come down right here across the northern parts of the eastern shore and parts of the northern neck. This is where you see the winds coming up from the south of that front, and then from the east and the north to the north of it. That's actually going to lift back up to the north. So while it hangs here for a little bit this evening, by tomorrow morning it retreats north. We see the temperatures warming across the area, low 60s in the morning. We're back up into the low 80s for highs on Friday. And then on Saturday, we'll do it again. Temperatures staying very, very warm as we get into Saturday. By Sunday, that's when a front comes through, giving us chances for rain and then much colder air into early next week. The highs today, low 80s, maybe low to mid 80s for some, low 80s on the peninsula, Gloucester around 81, cooler at Matthews and over to the eastern shore, down around the Outer Banks, mid to upper 70s, low 80s for our inland locations. Now, overnight lows down around 63, obviously mild. Keep in mind our normal high is 66 this time of year. We're well above that tomorrow. Here's the rest of the 7-day forecast. Our temperatures will stay warm through Sunday. Showers developing Sunday afternoon, most likely after, say, 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Then scattered showers through the evening. It will turn much colder behind the front. Temperatures topping out low to mid 60s Monday and Tuesday. Cooler on Wednesday. Eventually, by the end of next week, we'll see temperatures trending back into the 70s. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Weather Desk. I want to remind you, you can always stay in touch with our forecast. When you scan that QR code right there, download the 13 News Now app, and it's free, available there at the App Store and Google Play. Guys, it's a great resource. I hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Weather Desk. We'll see you next time.